on 6A.
Thank you, Stan.
It references the annual report to the council, and it mentions man in there, and it was me who did that stuff, so just swapping out man with done.
Man
And
went to
then
done.
Other than that,
All right.
everything looks good.
And thank you for doing that. I didn't get back in time to come to that meeting, so I appreciate it. Okay, anything else that seems, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the
Make
minutes.
a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, okay, and we have, who seconded?
I did.
Okay, John? Okay, question? All right, we got a motion to approve, the minutes as corrected. All in favor? Opposed? All right, the minutes is approved as amended. All right, on topics from the floor, I don't, okay, how many actually want to talk? I know you said you wanted to,
Well, unfortunately, the man that's the head of this.
Willow's not here yet,
Yeah,
okay.
he got a flat tire in Gold.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to.
But he is on his way.
All right, so, all right, okay.
Table that for now.
Okay, we'll table that for right now, and you want to talk on something different there,
Yeah,
Patrick?
as well.
Okay, okay, come on up,
I'm in support of that, but also.
okay.
Just real quickly, too. Hi, Patrick Berkeley, 254 South 14th Street, and I'm coming before the Parks Commission as a friend of Dalton Lake, kind of an informal group
Okay.
that's similar to the Nob Hill group. And for the last 3 years, I have sponsored Solve Cleanup on their spring cleanup day. And I've done that through communication, email communication through with the city to get approval for that. But I guess I'd like to approach you as well and maybe get, looks like Solve is wanting to be a little bit more formal in terms of getting permission from the city and public entities when these types of things are sponsored and not. So basically, I do have a couple of papers that I can either present to you to show what they're. I was expecting maybe Doug to be here as well as a city council member.
Yeah, I guess,
But-
I guess the first question is Dalton Creek a
Dalton
park? And-
It is
Dalton
not
Lake.
our
Dalton
park.
Lake, rather. And see, it's not in our jurisdiction.
It's not even owned by the city.
It's
So-
owned by the city, but it's
It's
not.
not owned by the city.
it's
So
not- it's
what?
not a
So I
park.
guess I am confused. What has happened in the status in the
what's
meantime?
happened?
Because it has been considered as part of that park and the master plans in a way. So
Yep.
what's happened?
I don't know if any action's been taken, but we have an exclusive use permit with ODOT, who is the owner of the property, for passive recreation.
Right.
And that has, kind of a definition in that agreement.
So I guess I'm just saying though is that this is kind of new because all the discussion I've ever had with city personnel, and like it's been kind of like, even though it's not a park, it's been falling under that head. And as a matter of fact, the last time I did approach the city by email about this with John Walsh and the like, the recommendation was I come to you guys first. This is several months ago, and I put it up. So I guess, okay, now that I finally am able to come to one of your meetings, since I don't work during the summer, I'm just trying to follow the rules.
Yeah.
And
And
we're
I
trying to
want
help you.
to,
We
Yeah.
do appreciate it.
We appreciate the rules, we're stuck with it too, because we recognize volunteers, and then if you're working for a accepted thing, then you have to have these.
Hey, Patrick, I think it'd be helpful to talk about, what do you do during a work party with Solve, or what does that mean?
essentially, we remove invasive plants and we pick up trash.
Okay, do you plant anything, or is it?
We haven't at Dalton Lake at this time. I know at Nob Hill they do, but we haven't because basically our clearing has a lot of the native stuff to come back on its own. So for instance, above the bluff, just above the bluff, we have cleared that area of Himalayan blackberry, and in the last couple of years, there's just been an abundance of Colombian lily, greater camas, and other things. So we've not done any planting. Our focus has just been on getting rid of the blackberry, the ivy, and picking up trash.
And is Solve asking that the city apply for you, or what
So,
Solve
well,
is?
no, but for instance, here it has a public property permission and mutual indemnity agreement, so that they want to know that if I'm out there doing something, the city's not gonna go after them, after
Gotcha.
Solve, because I'm doing something in Solve's name.
Okay, I understand.
That's basically.
And I guess this is where that voluntary release agreement would probably rear its head.
Which,
We have,
we-
people have to sign these
we do that.
things.
and we do do that.
And so I'm hoping that if the city recognizes that area, if they're doing that, we're trying to say we're in support of, we're behind you. The problem is, does the city recognize you? I mean, the city recognized Dalton Lake, and I can't get someone to say officially that it's a city thing. Like she says, it's leased from
Yeah.
another entity.
I guess it'd be a question if the work you're doing qualifies within our lease agreement that we have with ODOT. And I want it to be.
Okay, so then I guess I
I
just need
want-
to go probably through the city administrator's office
Yeah,
to,
I think
that.
so.
Okay, I'll do that.
And once they say that they're support, we will back you to get it
Yeah.
through the commission that this is something that needs to be addressed. Yes, Jerry?
Well, Pat might not remember me,
I do.
because I didn't do it this year. And I
No,
think
this guy got rid of huge amounts of ivy down below with a chainsaw and an
So
axe.
fun.
and my neighbor Larry.
Yes.
So the 2 previous years I worked on this, and there was 3, in fact, probably that one area we need to go back for. 2 years we cleared out big areas, but basically Pat is really good. When you show up, he has the release form, he makes sure every single person signs the release form, and it's like you said, they just did the ivy and the blackberries and picking up garbage.
Yeah. Okay.
That's pretty
And-
much it.
And
I
that's what,
wish I
and
could tell
Sol-
you this was a park and that, yeah, you're doing a great job.
and Solve is a great organization, it's all, and we're behind Solve 100%. And if you guys keep doing that, just like not, we'll support you, and I'm hoping that we can get an official statement from the city through ODOT.
Okay.
And then whatever you need, let us know.
All right, I just want to make sure I'm following the rules and making sure that everybody's happy.
Then I have one more thing to say, because the ivy on the trees down there, there was 3 areas where there was immense amounts of ivy that was huge. You had to have a chainsaw and there was still one clump of about 4 or 5 trees that Larry and I was gonna do this year, but we didn't go do it. But there are hundreds of trees up there.
Mm-hmm.
Hundreds of trees that just have very little ivy on them. And one of the things I've thought about is maybe they could get, I know the seniors have to do a project at the school, and maybe a Boy Scout troop, because the ivy that's left on the trees, other than that one group, is stuff that would be easy to remove. It's only about like that big around, it's
Right.
not the huge stuff. So, that's something, maybe Pat, since you're really interested in that, maybe you could contact the high school and see if they would have like a senior project to do it. Or maybe some Boy Scout, Girl Scout groups that would like to go down there and spend some time doing it, because they could remove the ivy off the trees.
Okay,
That would
and-
be a Earth Day activity, and the only thing is, before they did that, make sure that whoever does that knows the difference between 3-leaf, poison oak.
Poison
and-
oak
And
and-
so they don't get the kids that.
There's abundant poison oak
I
down
know,
there,
and
yeah.
that's one of the concerns I have if you turn a bunch of kids in there.
Yeah. And, okay, so I'll do that. I'll contact John Walsh. I'll go through that, and anything I do to do that. And having said that, I am hoping to sponsor something September 29th on the beach cleanup day. I'll get information out about that. So September 29th, 9 to 12, tentatively at the Bluff. I'll get more information out. But thanks for your support. Thanks for helping understand
Thank you.
better what's going on.
And I wish we could help you more
Yeah,
right now.
no, appreciate it.
All right,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Patrick. Okay, now we can go back to, Willow, would you like to come up?
How you guys all doing?
Yeah.
So, actually, we got 5 of us right here, this is like a brief crew.
Forget me.
Yeah, why don't you, come on up and talk into the mic and be aware that
All right, how you guys all doing there?
it's fine.
Can you guys all hear me?
Yeah, you're
all right.
fine.
So my name is Willow Bill.
12 years ago, I came into your town and helped carve a significant canoe with about 400 of your children. I helped paddle that to St. Louis. We were doing the Lewis and Clark Bicentennial. Do any of you remember that? You guys all remember that? All right, so what we'd like to do is we would like to maybe share that canoe a little bit more than leaving it in your guys' garage. For the last 12 years, it's basically gone into the garage and not been shared with anybody. This year, a number of your citizens all got to paddle in it. It was really cool. This group right here. Basically, we're asking to place the canoe down in the Columbia View Waterfront Park. You guys all familiar with that? Yeah?
Now, tell me if I'm wrong, have you been to the
Sure.
city council already? Because I was told, and I'm just going, I'm trying to help you.
Absolutely.
The city council is working with the waterfront development. And if part of the waterfront development, which is down here, is there's a hotel that's supposed to be built. And that part of that hotel that they're supposed to be negotiating with is right now, if it's in planning, would be some Indian artifacts or things along those lines. And one of the perfect places for that canoe would be in that hotel area that would be along the river.
May I interject right there?
Yes?
Is anybody in here an Indian? 3%. Okay. This is good. One of the things that we represented ourselves as on the St. Helens canoe is we were earthlings, number one. Number two, they told me 12 years ago about that plan. And all I'm saying is this. You have 400 kids that have never been thanked. For a couple $1,000s, you could put this case out there next month. I know that they're in review. They've been telling me that stand for over 10 years. And it should go there. You're absolutely right. But when is that going to maybe get done, or is there a chance that might not get done?
Well, all I can say is, right now, it's been in a building, and there's two reasons for that.
Right?
Insurance and vandalism.
Okay.
The city will not let you just put it out there without some sort of security and vandalism thing. And that's, so their objection right now from the city point of view is vandalism. And so their idea of preventing vandalism is to hide it in a garage. I agree, it makes no sense, but that's what, we're in this.
I guess there's my problem. I work with a project with 45,000 children where we put 1,500 sculptures across 65 miles, and we teach our children not to vandalize.
Well, your children
So
don't do
that's
that.
kind of.
But look at Portland, look at any.
I'm just saying, maybe there's an opportunity there to maybe change that.
I agree, yes, yes.
I don't know who was first here.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Here's my concern. I have no trouble with displaying the canoe. I've seen that canoe numerous times. The concern I have is two concerns. One that Stan just mentioned is vandalism, and the second one I have is that it's got to be put in a display case that preserves it. You look at like Seaman, it's been there for 10 years or so, and I know he's been painted several times. I've even painted him once. But if you look at Seaman, he's, starting to deteriorate. Seaman's not going to last much longer. So
15 years is pretty much it for a dog.
so
Is semen made out of cedar?
That's that old dog.
But
He is?
the point would be, I would make a recommendation to say that let's approve this and move it on to the city council under two conditions. Condition one, that the structure that the canoe is put in is vandal proof, so people can't vandalize it, because it's gonna get vandalized if people can get to it. There's just,
Absolutely.
it's been vandalized a little bit. And two, it has to be put in a structure that preserves it, where it doesn't get wet. And I'd be willing to put forth a motion that we do that and move it on to the council if other members of the commission felt that way. I know.
Can I ask, you were saying Columbia View Park, you're talking about the little park right here? I'm talking about if we were all at the playground right now, you know exactly where the playground is? And let's look, if we look that way, we'd be looking at the river, right? Let's look this way. And if I'm looking this way, 13% of your week, you're looking at people smoking cigarettes and drinking beer. Is that right? That's the beer garden, right? What I'm saying is let's take their eyes off of that and put it down here. And let's represent that with 400 of their names and uplift your community with their fathers and their mothers and their aunts and their uncles. Hey man, I want to be on that wall. Patrick, man, what can we do? We want to be on that wall, don't we?
Listen out here, here's my thing.
Yes.
Let's say we put it there up against the wall.
Sure.
In a case,
Sure.
because it's a fine piece of art.
It's beautiful. Absolutely. It's revered across the
Now, you're
country.
gonna have kids sitting on there, playing on it, climbing on it, jumping off it.
Well, okay, so let's correct this really quick so that we all understand what's going on. No. As a captain of your canoe, I would never allow that.
No, I'm just, the case,
All right.
they're gonna be,
Maybe sitting on the case.
yeah. they're gonna be
I bet you
climbing on it,
I
jumping
might
off
sit on that case. You're right. Absolutely. You might have a thing there that says keep off the case.
Well, anyhow, that part of it, we will recommend that it goes up too, but as far as the physical construction of the case is out of our area. And then as far as the final location, whether that's part of the hotel or part of just putting it in the park, that would be an issue with, the city council.
Well, one of the issues I'd have is if you're gonna mount it on the wall, that wouldn't affect us too much, because that park's pretty small, and when we fill it up at 13 nights, it's already crowded enough. And then we have to mow and maintain that.
It would fit exactly where your trees and bushes are. You don't even have to remove the last 2 trees on the outside.
Because, you know,
It would roll right in and roll right out.
because we have to maintain it. That's my thing.
Yeah, there'd be nothing around it to maintain.
Yeah.
It would actually, to be honestly, it would take away 8 bushes you'd have to maintain. But they'd have to be somewhere else, I guess.
You know,
I got it right
I feel the same way I felt before, that, but where is it actually gonna go?
All right, let's go over it again. If we're sitting in the playground and we're looking at that wall, and on top of that wall is the beer garden. Look at the wall. Okay, it's kind of a blightful wall in the first place. All right, there are 2 large trees on the outside. They're really not that large. And then there's a number of planted bushes right in there. Okay, it's not even 5 feet wide. It would slide right in there. Canoe needs about 3 feet in the case. It's a 2.5 by 2.5 by 30-foot case.
So you're talking about that flower bed.
Absolutely, yeah, the flower bed right
the
off the
flower bed.
walkway. There is not one bit of adjustment on taking care of that park.
Well, we'd have to remove the sprinkler system that's there.
If you needed to remove that sprinkler system, you could.
Well, you're not gonna have any flowers in there, why, you know.
Well, you could just cap it and not have to remove it to spend that money. Because once the hotel comes in, it should go to the hotel. You're absolutely correct. And then you can put those plants back there and reutilize that water line.
So the temporary location is not an issue.
I think I'd like to see it somewhere better though, somewhere, because I can see people up at the beer garden spilling beer down on the case. I can see kids climbing on the case, jumping off. I can see, people sitting on the case during 13 nights.
I can see those kids sitting there going, "Hey, Dad, don't be doing that, man. That's our canoe."
Well, now
And maybe teaching something. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out.
I see what
I'm
you're
just
saying,
trying to.
but
I'm just
I-
trying to be a
I work
positive.
with kids a
Absolutely.
lot, and
Me too.
about half of them will do that, and the other half be like, "Oh, sweet, here's something to tag."
It's the beginning opportunity of teaching something that is better than what they're doing.
I would like to just see it somewhere better where more people can admire it.
I'm down with you there. It just needs like a permanent home. Like the Maritime Museum would like to take it maybe once a year for a month. Okay, we're talking to them. It should go there. It should be something you guys would want to share, and so, correct. Yeah.
So, I was just gonna ask, has this case already been built?
So, well, 10 years ago, yeah, they had a case that was ready to be built at that dimension for $3,500.
Okay.
But we couldn't come up with $3,500 in the council.
Is that something that you're looking for us to absorb the cost of, or is that something that someone else has already agreed to pay for?
I'll tell you what. So I'm working with Lisa Clark at Wanna Federal Credit Union.
Okay.
If you go back down to the park and you look again, Wanna Federal Credit Union, their flags have eagles all over them. They were very interested in trying to help this situation. They said that if they saw a few other entities in the city come together, that they would be more than happy to help make this work. So I'm not asking this committee really for money. I'm asking this committee for thoughts on maybe how to get more money. Why not? I'm asking this committee to support in 2 days in front of the city council and say, hey, you know what? This is a great idea and this could help our community. That's really all that we're asking. Is that right? Yeah, we're asking for the case.
As far as placement place, what about over by Seaman? It's already there somewhere in that area so that you have people coming on and off the dock. Cause if you're over by the playground area, you get the kids traffic, but you don't get a lot of the other
And then you get the
traffic that
guys up in the beer garden dropping their cigarette butts down, spilling their beers. And
You know, on the canoe, as that tide rises up, we look at each other and we say like this, excellent, but when the water gets up there, let's make a decision. It's been 12 years. So, I mean, let's make a decision. You know, it can go absolutely anywhere. I just thought that, you know, I was just throwing an idea out there, trying to take care of two things at once. You know, it is a blightful wall.
So
Your children, 13% of the week, look at people smoking and drinking. If you wanted to take those eyes off, you put it right there.
Well, I understand the wall would be the place to put your placard for the 400.
And it would be, how perfect would that be?
Now that's something you're gonna have to go through the school districts. We can't help you there, but if you wanna try to recreate the kids that did that 12 years ago.
I'd like to talk to Dennis.
Well, we know Dennis Hart won't be able to help you. You gotta go through the school district right here in St. Helens, there by the middle school.
Okay, I
You
spoke to
have to
Donna
find
twice.
out Who was in school in those schools at that grade level 12 years ago? We can't help you there. We can help you with getting a site for the canoe. That's all we can do.
Excellent.
Willow, what you're asking us to do is recommend that we display it somewhere, correct?
And we're-
Correct.
And
I
I
think we
think
can do that. I don't like the area where you want it, cause honestly, I think,
I don't like
I can see a lot of stuff happening to it, and I don't want something like that to get ruined or trashed, because that is a lot of hard work.
Okay, I'll tell you what, I'm a pretty easy guy.
Yes, okay.
Because I can end this really quick for you guys. Exactly. Let me end this really quick for you guys. Let me just take this really quick. Can you guys have an answer by next year when I come to town?
No, we'll have.
Well, I mean, I've been waiting 12 years, man. I'm down. I can do this.
No,
I understand that.
Willow, wait
Yes.
a minute. Jerry's gonna make a motion. Let me hear him. Jerry's,
It's almost the same motion I made, that I attempted to make a while ago.
okay.
I do not like Lace where it's going. I like your idea, because we're gonna have hopefully that urban trail. We're gonna have a big kiosk, hopefully, right there by Seaman that does everything. I think that's a better place for it to go. I really do. I think a lot more people would see it coming up from the river. I think more people would probably even see it that's in the park. So the recommendation, this is a motion, I'm gonna make a motion.
Okay.
Make a motion that, what do we call them, canoe?
Flying Eagle. Flying Eagle.
Flying Eagle canoe. I'm making a motion that the Flying Eagle canoe, we recommend that it be placed close to Seaman in the park, that the structure that the canoe goes in is or protects it from vandalism and protects it from water damage. Because, I mean, this canoe, we want it to last a long time. And if it doesn't have, if water doesn't get on it, it doesn't get vandalized, it will last a long time. And I agree. I think that would be something that would add something to our park system. So that's the recommendation I make.
Little clarification, if I could. Would that be a temporary site or a permanent site that you're recommending?
Well, that's the site right now until, in the future, you know, if there's a better site for it, you know, like I know that you're talking about the Esplanade there, you know, there might be a lot better place for it in the future. But it's kind of like,
We can get it displayed right now, though.
yeah, it's kind of like Willow says, you know,
It's-
let's, you know, let's, like the trail, let's do it now.
Not like we have
You know, and then
No,
down the line, if the city council has the final word on this anyway, this is
Right.
just a recommendation. So Doug, you know, down the line, if there's a better, if this works out really good, maybe the city council might wanna leave it there. If the case is not adequate enough, and the city council has to make the final decision on what this case looks like for vandalism and protection. The city council always has the option of moving something.
Right.
I mean, even if we say it's permanent, the city council can nullify that. So that's the motion I make.
I'll second his motion.
Okay, so we have a motion.
You can't amend the motion.
I don't,
This is my experience. Well, first off, I started writing this letter to the editor thing about my experience on the boat. Let me do that.
Can I get a name for the record and come on up and,
up here.
or just get your name?
Talk loud.
Yeah, just the name.
All right, my name is, mic's off. Hello.
Yeah,
My name is Mark Schultz, St. Helens resident for the past year. Just moved here, love the town. Anyway, about 2 weeks ago, I experienced an experience I won't soon forget. My son's band, Silver Hill, played a benefit at Running Dog Brewery, I'm sure you know where it's at, for the Flying Eagle, 30-foot-long hand-carved canoe piloted by a man named Willow, caretaker of said canoe. In return, Willow gave the band and I a boat ride. We boarded at the marina and rode around Sand Island round trip. The water was smooth, the canoe stable, and the history well recited about the Flying Eagle's journeys across the United States. It was fantastic. I strongly suggest making the Flying Eagle a permanent fixture in St. Helens' future summers. How many people can say they rowed, R-O-W-E-D, and rowed in a handcrafted canoe? Let the canoe speak. My point is this, and I know it's all about money and upkeep. After listening to everything and talking to Will about this, my suggestion is this. Do a permanent fixture right down on the waterfront and make it like acrylic, 3/4-inch plastic, whatever, so that it can't be vandalized. And put a little rope around it and make a plaque in honor of the 500 children and so many adults that carved this thing, and make it part of the town's history, because it is.
So I had a solution to the wall plaque idea where we were talking about the names, of people who had carved the canoe.
Is it Ben? Could you get the name for the record?
Yeah, Win Schultz, St. Helens resident.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
My solution, it was pretty simple, is why not just erect some kind of even if it's a wood sign or something, like the Flying Eagle and a bit of history, and then the names of people who carved the canoe. Simple enough, you could get a group of artists to work on that, and
But I think we're all in agreement on this.
Those kind of.
we're just worried about the vandalism. Yeah.
Well, you're outside the scope of the Parks Commission as far as the names and stuff like that. That I can't help you. We will try to get, our motion right now is to get you a home for the canoe. All right? And we have a motion and a second to put the canoe in the general area of the waterfront by the Seaman Dog,
The dog statue.
dog statue, and that's the gist of the motion, and this is our recommendation to the city council.
Move the question.
Question?
Move the question.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, opposed? All right, motion has been.
I just
Okay,
want
no,
that
no,
to happen.
thank you very, very much. No, hey, you know what, look at it, I'm happy that we're trying to move forward on this. It's the number one thing here. I may ask one thing. So when I asked for this, the other half of that was the wall with the children's names. Okay? That's almost as important as sharing the canoe. That's probably more important to St. Helens than the canoe.
Two-part thing that
Okay, so I'm not going to waste any of your guys' time. Can I ask for the wall right now? Would you guys do a motion saying that, hey, could they put the names of the children on the wall? Because look at this. This is in your guys' parks jurisdiction. Is it not? This is something that you guys could make a motion on right now so that in 2 days we can go there, and if we get the canoe over there and the kids' names there, we take care of both the stones I was trying to throw there, meaning that Blythe wall with those kids looking up there at people drinking and smoking and bringing their eyes down to mom and dad and aunts and uncles who have done something positive.
I'll make a motion that we make a plaque honoring the kids that helped build the canoe.
No, be careful who's the we. Just make sure we understand.
That we
We
allow.
allow, okay, as long,
We
we allow,
the people that build the canoe and put that on the wall where you were talking about.
I would like to add one more point to that, is that I think there should be, if somebody found an artist, that there should be a painting
What about a
replica
mural?
with it, like a mural.
Could you do like a
I think that would
partner
really
with
make
the
that area.
arts and cultural?
arts and culture would be a place that you would probably go for that.
Sure.
All right, but right now we have a motion that we allow a wall to show the, to honor the
The children.
builders of,
Yeah.
of the canoe. And there, who was the second on that one? Did
I'll
I-
second it.
Okay, we have a
For showing
second.
up.
Question? Uh,
Yeah.
Well,
So that we could put on the wall.
Right,
You don't have to
absolutely.
worry about people dropping stuff on it.
Yeah, it would look great. That would be, it'd be
Okay,
really a cool.
so, question on the motion?
So who would be the one to present this at the city council?
I believe
All we're doing,
Would that be something that you
all
would
we're
bring up?
doing is,
Okay.
I,
I
I'm,
just wanna make sure that we don't make the motion and go through all that.
Willow, are you on the,
It's on Wednesday.
are you on the agenda?
we're supposed to be there, Wednesday at 1 o'clock.
Well,
Wednesday at 1 o'clock at the workshop.
Great.
But all the support's cool. I mean, if 6 of us all went and wanted to do it, it'd be a done deal.
All we really do is recommend.
okay, so,
Yeah.
Just saying.
I wanted to make sure.
And all we can do is recommend.
Yeah, you know what? Like I said, I appreciate your guys' time.
so
Okay?
right now I've
Absolutely.
got a second and a question. All in favor of, the recommendation that we allow a wall, plaque wall to be, constructed at the park area, and say aye?
Aye.
Yes, and a vote opposed? Okay, motion passed. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Paddle the Flying Eagle is a really outrageous experience.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Build a hotel and call it the Flying Eagle.
No,
We have no control over that.
all right. Okay. Council, any,
Thanks, Willow. See you Wednesday.
oh,
Thank you.
who else, excuse me, more topics?
The deal,
Matt?
the deal is,
Okay,
hotel people
okay,
want to make a,
please, okay, we got more, Matt, from, topics from the floor. Okay, all right, Matt.
so if that gets built.
So I handed out a couple pages, flyers that I wanted to quickly go through with you. This is the revised and hopefully final version of the Parks CIP projects that we brought to you guys a little while ago. This is a finalized list. So we had some staff members go through the Parks Master Plan that Jenny did a few years ago. We outlined every single plan, what level they were, how important they were. We have a amount tied to that. You can see in one of the columns, you can see a 1, 2, or a 3, or if the item was removed or pushed to the future. On the far right of the first page, first two pages, you'll see fiscal year 18-19, which is this current year, and then 19-20, which is the next year. And it kind of marks which projects staff has kind of outlined that we would like to try and accomplish in these next 2 years. So it was myself, Jenny, Thad, Neil, Sue. Is that it? Those 4 or 5 people? No.
Well, I'm looking at this stuff like remove, future, one.
Yep. So there were a couple items that were removed from the master plan. I think Thad can give you an idea of why. I think there was a reason why we removed the re-level baseball fields. Was there? I can't remember the specific reason, Thad. Was there on 6th Street?
Well, 6th Street? I'm not sure why we. Well, 6th Street's not bad. Not as bad as the softball fields, but. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I'd hate to see it
Yes.
bounce and hit in the face or.
Sometimes they don't take the weeds off.
I know.
Yeah.
I think.
So you guys did have this list last time when I came and kind of gave us the okay to move ahead on these projects. I'm happy to have another discussion, but we're already into August.
I just saw it's removed and I was.
So I would like to say it's still open to discussion if you wanted to keep it in there for a future item.
Historically and traditionally, or however you want to phrase it, user groups that have used those facilities have actually been the ones that get involved in themselves.
This year they did not. Last year they did not.
But you can only drag it so much.
They
before
really let the weeds come back and everything, and, I mean, it was, the maintenance was not upkept like it had been in the past.
So, when was the Parks Master Plan done? 17? 15? So the Parks Master Plan that we got this list from was back in 2015. I would envision in the near future, after these first couple years and these projects are completed, that we would probably revisit the master plan to figure out, create a new list of projects, new ideas. A lot of development, I would assume, is going to happen in between these next few years. So it will always be on the list with that item removed, so that it's an earmark if we want to bring it back. And it's always in the 2015 master plan as well when you revisit it.
Just a thought here. What has priority, the fields, or this quote tennis court? Think about this. You've got you had $50,000 or for the fields. What was the cost for the fields before you removed them? Was that? So
Stan, we're on 6th Street right now, just the 6th Street field.
just 6th Street.
Just the 6th Street fields.
And that's the kids that play there are 7, 8, 6, 7, 6, 7.
Yeah,
In,
but see,
in the master plan, those projects that were removed or marked as future were not marked as a priority 1 or 2. So they were not given as high a priority when staff went through and created this list.
Yeah,
And-
that's
and
what
we
I was
had-
gonna say is that this maps out to the actual master plan and what was determined based on the survey results of what the highest priority, the biggest bang for the buck
Correct.
is,
And-
right?
We didn't just pick it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and also we found out that the dugouts down on the 7th Street end have split.
Yeah, no, they're.
And they need to be replaced, or not just the dugouts, but the whole backstop. The whole thing needs to be redone. So that's a lot more expense than we anticipated.
Yeah, I understand that, but and this is just my opinion. I think the re-leveling of the fields is important because it's a safety issue.
Well, we had that price too, and that's about $10,000 a field.
Right, but what's $10,000 compared to a kid losing his teeth or broken nose or?
Well,
I
Pitching
don't
machine.
think you're going to hear any disagreement of whether that should be done or not. We all agree it should be done. It's a matter of priority with all of the projects and stuff like that needs to be fixed around in the entire city. There's a lot of projects and stuff that needs to be fixed. And as a priority level, at least in the master plan, that was not seen as a highest priority compared to other items.
Well, hear me out. Here's what I'm trying to tell you. You've got priority 1 tennis courts, $200,000.
That's on Campbell.
That's for the
Forget, you have a budget for everything, all right? Whether you spend it one or place the other. What I'm trying to say is, how many people are affected by the baseball fields and how many are gonna be, you understand where I'm coming from?
I understand.
If I'm gonna spend $20,000 for 50 kids and spend $200,000 for 2 kids, what is wrong with, why am I paying $200,000 for a few kids over, I could do a bunch of these $20-some thousand projects for a lot of people. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
That 200,000 though.
that
is
$200,000
until
for the tennis
1920.
courts and the basketball courts.
And if you've been.
And those are to replace
Okay,
the
so
courts that
that-
are not usable at all, whereas the
Okay,
6th Street
so
ball fields you can use. Maybe they're not the best and most level fields, but they're a lot better than the cracked up tennis courts and basketball courts that nobody can use.
Yeah, well, that's all I'm asking.
Yeah, Stan, I kind of go along with it. I understand where everyone's coming from here.
Okay,
But we've been talking about that tennis court for
okay.
as long as I can absolutely remember. I mean,
No, I agree, the tennis courts are
about 3 years
terrible.
after it was
The
built.
tennis courts are horrible, you can't play on them. And it'd be nice to have some for the people that do play tennis. But now, what Stan, I think, is saying is the people that play tennis
I understand what
compared to
you're
the people that play baseball, your numbers are gonna affect a lot more people.
But you need to understand too,
But my feeling is we've got tennis courts there that have been needed to be repaired for absolute years. I don't play tennis. I have friends that have talked about it. I've heard them talk about it. Those courts need to be replaced, and they can also be, I think, used for basketball also.
yeah, that's what I wanted to point out, that we're gonna put in a sport court, not just tennis
Oh,
court.
okay.
So it's a
All right.
multi-use for
Okay, all right.
all kinds of different things,
All right,
not just tennis.
There'll be flex courts.
okay. But I'm just thinking at the same time.
It'll be things like volleyball, pickleball,
Fine.
basketball, and tennis, all of those in
We're
one.
gonna actually have a pickleball court there?
That's the idea, yes.
Oh, really? I mean, it's gonna have lines on it and everything?
Yep. It will all be lined.
Hey, we're moving up to the-
Okay, I hate to do
Um,
this, but with all these mics, poor Sherry's gonna go crazy. So please, just one person talking at a time. Thank you very much. I'm
And
sorry.
it was just a question.
Correct, I understand.
I saw it on there and it was like, whoa, why did that away from?
Yep. The easiest answer is that, at least from the master plan ideas and from what staff talked about with the current facilities that we have, it was not as high as a priority as other items on the list. But like I mentioned, after these first couple of years and we get these projects done, there's nothing to say that we can't revisit the master
Right.
plan
No,
and
I
add those
understand.
items
And
back.
we are moving forward with other things, like, there's no restrooms there, the restrooms is a good thing, and, you know, replacing the dugouts. Those are all key things, but at the same time, I'd hate to see a kid get hurt. I coach baseball. I've
Yeah.
been on
Yeah.
the field.
Well, I've coached for 20 years, you know that. And we used to go up and till the field and level it all ourselves
We have too.
because we had nobody to do it. The city didn't do it. We did it ourselves. John was there when we did it with the softball fields. We were out there doing it ourselves.
I'm coaching at the high school now, we do the same thing there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my kids are responsible for dragging and raking and.
Yeah.
But if that field's unplayable, I will not hold a practice or play on it.
Well, just by way of comparison, you say, what, you says 12, 13 teams, on average up playing pitching machine, that's 150 kids, April, May, and June.
It can vary though, it can be
Yeah.
as little as 16s, it can be as
Well,
many
which
as
is
20.
even less, and I'm saying 150 people will probably use the tennis courts year-round versus the 150 that
Can-
for 3 months out of the year. So there's an equity in doing something for tennis, which has been neglected for
Right, no,
2
and
decades.
I
at
agree, the
least.
tennis
Yeah.
courts are shot,
Yeah.
those are completely shot.
Can we recommend that the people who are using it, if they, like, have a work party or something to
The
work
Little
on
League
it? Like,
usually-
is
the
that,
Little League usually does.
okay,
They have a work party, but they usually just go out and pull weeds.
okay.
When
I
was
could
coach-
see that for the little kids, but I mean, if parents, I don't,
When I
are,
was coaching the junior team, we had the middle school, which isn't even parks. It was us coaches
uh-huh,
that did it.
Yeah.
And we had that field looking better than the high school field.
Yeah.
And that was 3 of us. There was 3 of us, we put over 100 man-hours into that.
yeah.
So it's a lot of time and effort. and
So you have the list in front of you. I just quickly wanted to have you at least look down the projects that are on the list for this fiscal year, that are marked with an X under fiscal year 18-19, and then the second year in 19-20. And there's more on the second page there that go
Yeah.
through the remaining parks.
I wanna talk, every time we do this, I talk about this. I wanna go down to Godfrey Park there.
Yes.
And the thing I've mentioned several times at this meeting is the area that's off to the right, as you're facing the park there, the little road.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that designated as not an off-leash pet area, but a pet area. I'd like to see some dirt dumped in there and some signs that says pet area, so when people go down there with their dogs, they're not letting their dogs poop, all over the park. I know that just because it says pet area, some people won't do that, but at least if there's a pet area, we're talking about a couple signs, put up the dog, plastic bags and dump some dirt down in there so that it's, people will wanna go down in there. I know that, I've been saying this to Judy and everyone, but that I would like to see done, and we're not talking
It's not even,
thousands
it's
of-
not even prioritized on the master plan, though.
But
I know
that's not a budget thing,
Well,
really. I mean, that's like.
I guess I'm
for
saying it's the wrong
maintenance.
forum
That's
for
just
it.
a maintenance thing, and
No,
we've,
it's not a maintenance thing. It costs money to dump the dirt. You gotta buy the dirt, and you gotta dump it, you gotta buy the signs and put them in there. I mean, we're talking probably a couple $1,000s. I don't know how much. it
Gotta
would
have
cost to do
ground
that.
cover so it doesn't erode, bark chips or
But I think
something
that
on
would
it.
be a big upgrade for that park. Because you look at that park, it's really a pretty nice park. But you look off to the right side of it, and it's not. And right now, people let their dogs, people won't go over in that area because it's rocky and rough and it doesn't have any ground cover. And I think for a very, for a lot of money, I think we'd get big bang for our bucks by doing that. I think it would make the park a lot more attractive and a lot more user-friendly to the people that go there.
See, I would say that we would get more bang for our buck with the natural playground, replacing the old playground equipment.
Well, we
with
are doing
the-
that. I mean, I'm not saying,
Yeah.
I'm not saying replace it. No, I think we still need the playground equipment there, but that even makes it even more, I don't know where the playground's, you got more kids there that are gonna be maybe
Let's,
dodging dog poop.
when we do our budget for next year, let's
Yeah.
put it on the budget next year and I included in that part of this.
Well, I
but-
talked about it when we had it, when we talked about this before. I also talked about this, and
And
it wasn't,
then
it's
it
not
was
even.
brought up that it was a maintenance thing, as far as getting
is
the
that what
dirt
it
in
said?
there. It wasn't put it in the budget thing, it was a maintenance. We
Because
just
I
need
thought,
to get the
actually, I
dirt.
thought Neil said that they
put
could
there.
actually do it.
Yeah,
Can
and
I
it was just a
say
matter
something?
of timing.
Yes.
Well,
I asked Neil about that today, because you brought it up at the meeting before, and he said it was on his list to do this summer. And then he wasn't at the last meeting when you brought it up again. And today he said that they had gone down there and looked, and they couldn't tell what area you were talking about, because the only road down there is the access road that they would not dump dirt on.
No, he said that.
So
To the right
he
of the
said he
ac-
wants
To the
you,
right of the access road.
so he wants you to meet Thad, maybe meet Thad down there and show him what exactly you're talking about. And you didn't mention that you wanted a dog park in there when you brought it
Yeah,
up
I think I
before.
did the second time. But maybe, I know I didn't the first time, because we were talking about a playground.
not
area. But I think that park needs to be upgraded a little bit. I mean, that area,
I understand that there could be a health risk, a health and safety risk, a cleanliness risk.
Of getting the dogs to a certain place, like rest stops on I-5 or any highway, that they do have dog areas. The rest of the lawn area is reserved for kids rolling around and playing in the ground and whatever, so that they don't have to dodge that kind of material. And so I see it as a good thing, just to get the dogs away into a place where they should be. I think that's important.
It is, because you could do
And
the
I
same
don't-
thing to start.
Well, it sounds like all you gotta.
Very
do is
inexpensively.
show them the problem will be.
Okay, one thing that was just brought to my attention, and maybe you can help me out, if you go to Campbell on those tennis courts, you had ×4 and you had 200,000. And then you go to McCormick and you have tennis flex courts and you got 35,000 for one of those. Is there something with my math, or who's getting the other $15,000?
The McCormick Park. Let's see.
Yeah, the very first item
Yep,
on
the
McCormick Park.
flex court for $50,000.
Yeah, well, then on the
that
left
is an additional court that we're looking to hopefully add behind the library. There's some flat grass or flat ground area that's kind of almost ready, other than slapping a concrete pad down and doing the court. That is a new amenity to that park.
So the number on the left,
It should be 50. That's just a typo.
okay, so the 35 on the left should have been 50,000?
Correct.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
So that's right behind the library?
Yes.
I cleared that all off. That's where we used to have our fill dirt and stuff. We cleaned it all off. You've seen it. It's all cleared off now, so. And it's not like Campbell, where Campbell is kind of a swamp, so they'll really have to do a lot of infrastructure work. This is pretty much all bedrock, so they'll be able to just come in and form it up and go for it.
Okay.
So we've received a couple informal quotes for that price to get the $50,000. We'll have to go through an official bid process, but
Do we need an approval from us, or?
it's basically looking for a recommendation from you to take this forward to the city council to move forward and start on some of these projects.
I'd move we recommend that this be passed on to city council with our recommendation, and would add that, since I went on the Parks Commission first time over 30 years ago, I've never seen this much happen into the parks, and I'm happy to see all of it.
I think it's great we're going into the park.
You know, and and there are things on here we could, might wanna change, but, we could look at changing them,
Can we put
between
in your
this year and
motion-
next year.
Can we put in your motion that any removed items can be just moved to the future?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we can do that. We don't even need to. I don't think we need.
Just
that would just be
I can
introduced at a
retype
future-
those in and
We-
put
and if
future
you- if you-
instead of
we
remove.
could
Right.
Go ahead and do that, so.
Yep.
You agree that a removed item can be brought and added in the future?
Yeah, and maybe that's a discussion for another meeting when you have some more time, because there were some items, Jenny was just mentioning, there were some items that were removed for a specific purpose, because they were put in the master plan, but they're not really needed anymore. So I'd rather not waste any time today with that discussion, because it's not gonna affect anything as of right now. But we can definitely come back at a later meeting when you have some more time and discuss those particular items.
Next meeting, we have a discussion on the removed items.
Yeah,
Put that on the
okay.
agenda for next meeting.
All right, so right now, we got a motion and a second to, move this, proposal on to the city council. Question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the recommendation is to pass this, financial report or budgeted items on to the city council. Okay, is that
I
it
will
from the floor?
Just
Oh,
say thank you for adding the brochure in there.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, I
we
didn't
brought
even
that up
notice
last
that. I
time,
didn't
so
even notice
it's
that.
on there, so thanks. It's right down
Okay,
there,
all right.
very bottom.
Did you get all that? Okay. Any other things from the floor? Okay, we'll move on to council reports. Well, you're number 4.
You, Doug.
This is impressive because
Thank you. Now it's more impressive, right? This is impressive, and I've got a few people to thank, and one is Matt being here, and does that make a difference or what? We've got our financials in front of us, we've got our projects in front of us, and we're all set to go as an action item on the council. So I just wanted to thank him for being here. The next person I'd really like to thank is Carmen. And Carmen represented you folks at the city council, and unbelievable report. It was like it knocked the socks off of all the council people that heard it, because it was so thorough and it was so well delivered, and just being effective and efficient. I can't thank you enough. Matter of fact, I'd like a copy of that report. I thank you. I was really very impressed with that. Another thing that I'd like to comment on Willow's report, and this has been an ongoing situation because, you know, the Flying Eagle has been in the Public Works building in the wintertime. Keith Locke from the get-go was involved in the making of that for the Lewis and Clark expedition that came down here quite a few years ago, and that's where that canoe was carved. And so Keith kind of took it under his belt and took care of it. And it was over in the library for some time in the winter times, but they didn't like it there because there were too many kids crawling all over it and it took up too much space. And so it got moved into Public Works storage area where it's been safe, and it's been out of the weather and it's in a good place. The city owns that canoe. The city has insured that canoe. And so just for your knowledge, we have insurance on it, and not much liability. So when Willow takes it out, he's using city property, and doesn't have all of that liability insurance. It scares a lot of us. So there are concerns about the canoe leaving its perch wherever it's going to be is in question at this point. And as somebody probably already pointed out, that Tokelo is a investment corporation and a engineering corporation that will, at this point, talks are going on for a $50 million enhancement of the riverfront area, that riverfront development area, and so far the preliminary issues are, as you've seen on some conceptual drawings, a hotel, There's a pier in there and whatever, and a boardwalk, esplanade, and it's very impressive. Along with the hotel, which is done by the Embarcadero Group, they're very interested in paying tribute to, guess what? Cultural heritage. And so here's a caveat of that. If they're involved in wanting to do that, then what a better place for a canoe than to be put up in whatever they come up with a design. And there's going to be a lot of money there to do it in actually a world-class way of paying tribute to our heritage on the river. So they're in tune with that. That's what they say anyway. And so we haven't got into any plans or seen any plans or anything like that. So that's why I ask if the canoe was to be placed in a permanent or a temporary encasement wherever it goes. So that's just for your knowledge. The council will do what they can do with that, and I know that it's kind of on hold for now because we don't like to see things put up with a lot of energy and enthusiasm and then taken back down again and torn up again. Okay, it's like the old streets getting repaired, and then they have to do nice new paving over them, and then they have to tear them up the next week to put a sewer line in or something, right? So it's the same kind of thing. So hopefully, when the council reacts on that, we'll see where that goes, and where the funds are going to come from as well to build something like that, because it's always more than anyone thinks. With that, Jen, are you going to hang around for a little bit and talk about build just a bit? But I will. Yeah, can you help me with that? Yes, I went back to Washington D.C., accompanied John, and to try and get our build grant, which is a $15 million grant. And the $15 million will go to the first phase of the infrastructure in the riverfront development. That first phase includes a esplanade about as wide as this room, two-layered in places to where the trail is now would be one level. And then the second level would be down just a little bit lower on the rickrack for people to go down, sit, and enjoy the riverside kind of out of the way of the pedestrian traffic. So those are very popular. You can see those in cities all along in Europe, and you can see them in, Port Angeles has one, scoped out exactly like that. So again, this $15 million grant is something that is really upscale. And as long as, I think the philosophy of the council is, hey, as long as we're doing this project and our names on it, we're going to put our best effort forward. We're going to do it the best we possibly can. And that's why we went out for that $15 million grant. That grant rocks. And if I can get that grant to you, that's what we took back, and we wanted that to rise to the top because it goes through about 5 layers of reviews, and by December, we'll know. If it hits, then Tokelo, I'm sure, will bond immediately, and I think that'll speed up the operation a lot. And it's that important to us to get this thing going and get it going full throttle so that we can get kind of shovel ready before we anticipate. So we're always saying, well, it's a year away or 2 years away or whatever. But when the money starts flowing that way, well, it's just around the corner. So we'll know by December.
It hasn't been as long as some people indicated today either. It has not been 12 years since we acquired that property. may seem slow, to some people it is not.
It's lightning fast as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you hardly have time to think about what your next concept is going to be before the one gets okayed and goes forward and whatever. Anyway, and it involves the public as well. And we've listened very well to our citizens. And because of that, we got a Good Governance Award from the League of Oregon Cities several years ago for involving our citizens in such a way. And so we're all proud of that. But I want to tell you about my day. The alarm went off at 5:30 in the morning, and I hit the hay about 11:30 at night. And the day was starting out in the Senate, and then going from and meeting with Wyden. Then we went over to Congress, to the House, and met with Bonamici. Then from Bonamici, then we went back and met with Merkley. By that time, it was like 1:30 or whatever, and then we had like a 2:30 meeting at the Department of Transportation, which was maybe a mile and a half away.
Did you go into that opening down underground?
Underground, from one building to the next?
Oh yeah, and yeah. But we were in the office areas where the offices were, and those are kind of displaced on the campus of Washington D.C. So the Senate's in one place, and the House is quite a ways away. With that, they met with John and myself for 2 hours. Actually, it took 2 hours to get in and get out. They met with us for an hour, which was amazing. We went with consultants. Actually, one of the consultants accompanied us on each visit, and never have they seen a more enthusiastic group or individuals who pledged to do everything they can to make that race go to the top. So Bonamici, Merkley, Wyden, they all want this to succeed, and that's why we were there, to give them an awareness of our grant. Along the way, our consultants will be bird dogging that as I'm talking now. They're wanting to know where that is and if it's going forward. So it was very impressive. By the time we got to the Secretary Chow's office, we met with the person who who's in charge of actually the final drafts going to Secretary Chow, and she makes the final decision. There's a lot of money there. $15 million is about the right amount of monies that we're talking about, of what we want to do here. Everyone that we talked to said they looked at the grant, thanks to Jen and thanks to the people who put this together. Everything was so thorough, and everything was there in the grant. Everything that they asked us, our response was, well, you can see that on page 24, or you can see that on page 44. And yes, we've got it cross-referenced. And yes, this is it. So I felt really good about that. $15 million, and remember that the parks made a recommendation to stretch that greenway down the river as much as they can, connect it with the walkway. So those things were talked about. The best thing that was talked about, but this is Department of Transportation, was bringing this group and the bicycle and pedestrian group together. That they just go, you did what? And we brought these two together so that we can combine, and pedestrian and bicycle is a big part of transportation. And so that was one of the things that we have recently accomplished. They looked at our accomplishments of what we've done in the last several years, and the eyebrows went up. So I was very proud of just going back and accompanying John and having a document that was prepared by our staff. Wow, so excited. I couldn't be more excited.
Just email, oh, it is, okay. Okay.
I'm going to ask for a copy for each one of these individuals on our commission, so I can get that to you, and we'll have them here for you to pick up, or either that, or I'll get in the car and drive. I've never seen such a profound document that was bulletproof, what I thought. No. But I just did talk, I did talk if we can get those things.
Yeah, I want to get a copy of the picture that was on the cover.
Yeah, it's a neat thing. You saw it briefly, didn't you? Yeah.
Very briefly.
Yeah.
Okay, anything?
And with that, I would like to, are you on the agenda here? Okay. Well, any questions from anyone about that grant?
Well-
It's a B-U-I-L-D grant by the Department of Transportation.
And as
The
a
results will be, we won't know until December. is what
Yep.
I'm
That's
hearing.
correct.
Yep.
Right, so,
Getting
And-
around.
Yeah, you guys supported it too with a letter of support. So I talked about it a little bit back then, 2 months ago. Yeah, it's a big one.
well, thank you for all
Happy New
your
Year.
work, appreciate it. Okay, so you guys wanna talk about Millard Road property zoning, is that what I'm hearing next? All right, so we'll move on to that. Was there any other council reports?
No, I think Jen might want me to work with her on this one.
Okay.
I've spoken with the council about this piece of property. You recall?
Oh.
Hey, Sherry, do you know what the benches thing was for? What that went with?
The place to sit.
Thad brought those.
So I
Yeah, those were just some samples of benches, because it's on our plan to put 2 up at Nob Hill Park.
Oh, okay. So did you guys want us to make a recommendation on those, or? Okay.
Not at this moment.
Okay, all right. Okay, behind you,
So,
yeah, okay, you can see the screens, and we're looking at the screens for subject property.
and you have handouts too, you can
Right.
follow along. Yeah, so this was brought up a couple months ago. City Council entertained a public forum to discuss the zoning of what's called the Millard Road property. I'm gonna get into a lot of details about it, and I know this is an active group, we like to ask questions, but I'm probably gonna answer the questions, so if I could just get through all my stuff and then answer questions, that would be ideal. So here's the approximate location of the Millard Road property. Here's in more detail. It's about 23 acres. It's in 2 different parcels, and it's all currently city-owned. It was the former location of the hospital property that went defunct, and so you can see on this exhibit. And I don't know the history of that, and quite frankly, it doesn't matter as much to say that now the city owns it. And it was just this southern portion. So that was the former,
Discussion on that.
the former Columbia Health District Authority owned that, and then the city became.
School district on before.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a long history, there's a lot of emotions about this property. And then this other, 2/3 of the property is city-owned as well. And then there's a creek that runs through the northern part. So city council's interested in rezoning it because currently it's zoned public lands. And that's kind of limiting on the number of uses you can use on the property. And there's interest in doing something that has community benefit, given the history of the site. So things like either senior housing, the community's in need of affordable housing, so trying to meet some community needs that may not be otherwise met is kind of the general goal of rezoning the property, if I'm stating that correctly. So that's why they held the forum to begin with, is to get ideas from the public about what community needs could be met on this property. So there's a little bit more context I'm going to go through. Something else to note, so this is an old map from our 99 TSP, which is Transportation Systems Plan. And you'll note, so the Millard Road property is actually about here where my cursor is. You see it circling around there? So there is a proposed collector route through the property in our 99 TSP, and lo and behold, in our most recent TSP, the 2011, there's also a proposed connection through that property, and it does this kind of weird jog thing, and you'll see why in a minute. So whether or not a road goes there or a trail goes there, there has to be some kind of connection in order to honor the intent of
I'm
it.
totally confused where you're.
So this is the Millard, yeah, this is the Millard Road property right here. Do you see the circle that I'm making?
Oh, I thought there was a fly.
Keeps changing. Don't swat it.
Right here. I'm making a circle around the property. Okay.
But I'm trying to find it on this map here.
Wait,
Which one?
You gotta go to the second, next.
Oh, on the other one. So it's right here. You see? Approximately here. So this is Millard Road right here.
Where's Millard Road?
Right here. I'm trying to make motions. Do you see the cursor? I wish I could make it a different color or something, but
Yeah, point to it.
That's Millard Road in red.
yep. Yeah.
Got it.
I mean, the real thing to note is that it made it into the most recent TSP. So this is the document that guides our transportation network, and it suggests a connection between
What is TSC?
TSP, Transportation Systems Plan. Yeah, so this is what guides where we put new roads. It guides the width of roads. It's our transportation plan. And then so that jog that I mentioned in that map, this is why. So the property is encumbered by a number of wetlands. And each wetland has its own kind of designation according to our code and according to the Department of State Lands, who regulates wetlands. So this larger one actually has a buffer beyond what is identified on this map because it's a significant wetland according to our inventory. And that's what all this text is about. It's kind of identifying each wetland. I don't know how important it is to get into all of that, other than to know that the property is encumbered by some challenges, and whatever happens on it, we're gonna have to think about these wetlands. Also note, so this is the 100-year floodplain, I believe. So development's really difficult within that dark blue area. And then there's also a riparian protection zone along the edge of banks. So there's an upland protection zone from the creek.
How many feet is that?
So in this case, I think it's a 50-foot protection zone from edge of bank. So sometimes that overlaps with the floodplain, and sometimes it doesn't.
Does that bridge violate any rule?
I don't know. It's a good thing it's there. It is. It's cool. There's a picture of it in the master plan. It doesn't have a canopy.
So this
Yeah.
road, is it gonna connect Millard and Maple?
That's the idea. In the TSP, there was a lack of north-south connections in that area, so they just kind of put it on an undeveloped piece of property, which is what you normally want to do. You don't want to have a road going through a house. So the fact that this is majorly undeveloped, we should take advantage of that and try to connect some street networks together with a trail potentially, or a road, but it would be really challenging to build a road or a bridge over that. Okay, so a couple more things. So this is where you guys come in. This is why we're here. The Parks Master Plan looked at the park system service radius, which just means I took each park and applied a half-mile buffer around each park to see what neighborhoods were served within a half-mile radius of a park. And the areas in red are just residential areas within the city. And you can see there's a lot of underserved areas on that side of the highway. And so I looked at city-owned property and I thought, oh, the Millard Road property makes sense to have some portion of it be meeting this need for parks over there because it's undeveloped, the city owns it, it's next to a creek, it's hard to develop, there's these wetlands. And so it was included in the master plan as a potential park. And so even in the capital improvement plan, there was money set aside or future money set aside to develop this as a park. So if the city council wants to rezone either a portion of the property or all of the property, we need to somehow meet this park requirement, either with a portion of it or, you know, parcel of it, or maybe just the creek area. However we meet that, it's worth noting that piece.
What are they doing with the Ross Road property?
I don't know.
What was your question, John?
What are they doing with the Ross Road property? Because originally that property was sold to the city as a discount so that it would be made into a park on the west side of town. Sold by Eric Dahlgren. He took like a $75,000 cut to basically have it named after him. Then a portion of that property was sold to the school district in exchange for the upper portion of the property you've been showing.
Yeah.
For the boundary is plus some cash.
Yeah.
And then eventually the property that was owned by the hospital district had been owned by the school district. And that's how that was divided.
Yeah, I know there were some transactional things that
But
happened
the
with
Ross
parks
Road was
money.
supposed
Yeah.
to be a park.
Right, so the Ross Road property is sort of identified on here. It says Ross Road property, but it's not a parcel, and that's because it's not in city limits. So we would have to annex it. It's far away from becoming.
That's where the golf, they're driving range is,
That's
right by
correct.
Grace Baptist Church.
That's owned by the church, the school district, and the city.
Yeah.
Right, but that's that golf.
So potentially, if we wanted to develop all of the Millard Road property, that Ross Road property could satisfy this requirement. But we would need to amend our comprehensive plan to say, okay, we're meeting our park service radius requirement by doing this. So we're going to take this out of the park inventory. You know, you could substitute if that's what we decide to do.
Well, since they traded that property for park property, isn't that mean that it's still park property?
The Ross Road property, or
You know, the Millard Road property.
I tried to
Well, it's zoned public lands. Yes,
No, but
but it was never put into the park inventory.
because when they got the Ross Road property from Dahlgren's, the stipulation was that be made into a park. And then when they swapped that, the Ross Road property, when they swapped that for the Millard Road property, isn't there a can of worms there that was basically using park funds to buy that property?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
tried to make that argument, it didn't go anywhere.
It was never adopted as a park. I mean, it's not a park currently. It's still zoned public lands, but
And I think we made a motion to make it part of park inventory.
the Millard Road property?
The problem, Jenny, is that the Ross Road property was purchased with funds from the parks
Yep.
SDCs. And then part of it was sold
Yeah.
to the school district. I don't know why this actually happened, because it doesn't make any sense for the city to ever get involved to begin with. But it was sold to a portion was sold to the school district for a school, because they, on the Millard Road property, there's too many wetlands for them to actually put up a school on it.
I see.
And that's why it was sold to them. They were looking for school, additional, grade school
Sure.
on top of it. And so when it reverted back, my thought was, well, let's just undo the whole deal. The city can take
Right.
another one.
But still, going back to this other map, that's not the entire property, right? So we've still got this former Columbia Health District down at the bottom, and then
Right,
we've
that's
got
what
the
school
other.
district cut off in exchange for the cash and that piece of property they gave to us, which we didn't
Yeah,
want.
so if the Parks Commission wants to come out of this meeting with a motion to make all of what is in Exhibit A a park, that can certainly be the Parks Commission's motion. But I'd like to finish my presentation really quickly, too. I mean, if that's the route you feel like we should take. Okay, moving on. I'm almost to the end, I promise. So this is a really old comprehensive plan map, zoning map, and the purpose of that is to show you that this Millard Road property was zoned public lands back then. So this zoning of public lands it's been that way since basically zoning was adopted in the city. I mean, it's never been anything else. So that's something worth thinking about. So here's the current comprehensive and zoning map. So here's public lands in blue. R7, which is just a residential zone, is in yellow. And then the surrounding area is unincorporated residential. So it's in the county. So this is kind of an island of city-owned or city limits property. I don't know if there's other questions about this. This also shows where the utilities are. So this is important because typically when you zone a property, you don't want to spot zone something. So you don't want to have an island of certain zoning not surrounded by other types of that zoning. So that's something to think about when we think about rezoning.
At the top is the reason it's like that is because of
The creek, yeah, it kind of follows the property lines. And note, this is actually a split zoned piece where the part on the north side of the creek is residential and then the part on the south side is public lands. Typically, you don't like to see that, but for whatever reason.
At the boundary between the blue and the yellow, is that where the creek actually goes?
Well, as you know, creeks change in their path, but property lines don't unless you go through a process. So it could be, or it could be slightly off over the years as the creek changes.
Sure.
Yeah.
I've been there hundreds, thousands, hundreds of times, and I can't answer that question either.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the final slide. I can leave it on. This is a breakdown of what is allowed in each zoning district. So I look at this stuff all day, so this makes sense to me. It's probably going to take a second to digest. So R10, R7, and R5 are all just different levels of residential zoning. And the important thing for you guys is this public parks column. So P stands for permitted. So public parks are permitted use in R10, R7, R5, and AR zones.
And what's AR?
AR is apartment residential, so the highest density residential zoning. And they're conditionally allowed, which is what the C is, in mixed use, general commercial, and light industrial. So that means you can have a public park in those zones, but you have to go before the planning commission, and they're conditionally allowed. So the planning commission can decide to apply conditions to the approval. So the intent of this is to kind of give you a breakdown of what some of the uses we might consider. During the public forum, there was a lot of interest in this mixed use zone.
What is the definition of that?
So mixed use, depending on what you develop, it can allow for commercial or residential. And if you build certain types of residential, you can build with the AR zoning. So it can allow for pretty high density residential, but it also allows for commercial uses on the same property. So those like live work units, a lot of the development down here is mixed use. A lot of the development in Holton is mixed use.
So you have to change from public lands to become anything you can permit?
Yeah, so public lands is super limiting on what's allowed. Basically, public facilities are allowed in public lands, and so, parks aren't allowed use in public lands, but you can't build homes. You can't build apartments. You can't build senior housing. You can't build a shop, a grocery store.
When you say senior housing, you're talking like cottages? Or?
Well, we could be talking about like assisted living facilities. We could be talking about, I just know, I've heard that term kind of thrown around among counselors about the need for places for seniors to live. So like 55 and up.
So who's going to make the determination to change public lands to R10, R7, R5, or or AR. That,
So.
we're not gonna be involved in that.
So the
right?
reason I'm here is the city owns the property, so we can initiate our own request for a zone change.
No, but you own the property, but you own it right now as public land.
Yep.
What I'm hearing is parks doesn't belong in public land.
Parks do belong in public lands.
But our parks also are, the P is permissible?
Yes.
Okay, so parks are permissible in whatever you change public lands to. You can't put any of the Rs into public lands unless you get it rezoned, right?
Yep.
Who does the rezoning? We don't do the rezoning.
That's right.
So once you guys, someone has to rezone it first before,
So, but we have to initiate our own zone change. So the way a zone, like if a private say I own a piece of property and I want a zone change, I go and apply for a zone change with the city of St. Helens.
Right.
So since we own the property, we're basically applying for a zone change through us.
okay, now, whenever you rezone this, all those things that are called wetlands, one, nothing's gonna get built on a wetland, is that correct?
Yes, the wetland rules still apply even if we own the property or not.
Can we turn a wetland into a park?
There are ways that you can use wetlands to enhance features of parks.
So what I'm
yes.
trying to say is, so where people can't build, that would be an ideal part to double use that property, because you can't put a house there.
Yes.
But we could put a park, is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay, so then as far as us, as Parks Commission, if we want to, it's a public land now, so if we wanna have an area for a park there, if it goes into residential, we're not gonna just make that whole 16 or 20-some acres a park right now, is that right?
Good.
Yeah, but I
We
don't
could
think.
recommend that. I mean,
Well, I don't think we wanna recommend that, but we would like to at least recommend that some of these areas that are not gonna see a building, at least that would be an ideal place to then have a park.
I think that's a great recommendation.
I'm just saying, is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Jen, is this what I'm hearing, 'cause this piece of property right here that's right close to the creek,
Mm-hmm.
is that what you would see zoned as a park?
So I'll show you. So there's also a wetland in the middle of it. Yeah. So that top property is very difficult to develop.
even as a park?
No, with housing or any other use.
So
That
would be-
might be a logical breaking point for
we're talking
to
about the
leave
six-
this as.
The 6.86
Yeah.
portion.
So just so you know, most of the parks in the city of St. Helens are zoned public lands. There are a couple of exceptions because of how they were formed. So if you wanted a portion of a property to stay public lands, that could also be part of your motion. So what I'm hearing is you're interested in that portion being a park. You would say, I would like this top half. There is a split zone piece that we would have to deal with.
I think
This, but
that upper section from the black line,
And-
right up.
yeah.
I'm thinking should be a park, and the other maybe is, I think the mixed use is probably a good idea.
So what
mixed use.
what came out of the public forum? What was
So
what did was there a lot of attendance? Was it
I would
really
say,
minimal attendance?
so I have, my notes say 7 people spoke,
Okay.
and there were probably about 15 in the audience.
Okay.
And it was mixed. A lot of the people who spoke lived in the area and wanted to see it at the least dense possible. Some people wanted to see R10. Yeah, and 10,000 square foot minimum lots. That's what the 10 means. Some wanted to see, a CAT partnership, so community action team partnership, and maybe develop a portion for low income or supported housing. Let's see. I think the common consensus was that the Columbia Health District portion should definitely be used to benefit the public good in some way, so that we are paying tribute to how we got the property.
Yep.
Because there's definitely some history there.
Well, there's some acrimony that the city has it, so.
Yeah, there was
So
litigation
that's
and.
probably good. What do you, be a little more specific, what are you thinking, Jenny?
So, if you just sell a piece of property to a developer, they're going to develop what's the highest return. They're going to want the money. So public good is something that wouldn't normally get developed otherwise. So trying to meet a need that will not get developed normally in the normal route. And so that's why the senior housing thing came up, and that's why affordable housing came up. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add, Doug, about what the council's opinion is of what a community need might be.
Well, the community need to begin with was a hospital, and that benefits our community a tremendous amount. So that's what the tax base was built on, and now the city has ended up with this chunk of property, and what are we going to do with it? And so we want to stay within that original mission, and I mean, parks is what you've already suggested is taking that northern part as a park. I think is very effective because that meets community needs. How much of the other part, and I think that's pretty straightforward, and I think that would be digested by the council very effectively.
Yeah.
But what are we going to do with the other portion there to integrate with where that park is? Do we take portions of it and continue the park? And then go into, as you can see, there's a wetland there, so that could be linked up to the northern part by trails or by whatever, and it could continue. This whole thing could be a continuation of trails through the wetlands from the north to the south, and intermittently then zoned for whatever. It's 10,
Zone for senior housing.
7, or 5.
Right.
I mean,
right.
One thing we didn't mention, at least I missed, but that's all has infrastructure there. Water and sewage.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's and there's also sidewalks along.
there was also discussion like something like Avamere. So a facility that could help people and people could get, people who are not incarcerated but have a area that they need for their recovery, and they can get out and walk. It just makes perfect sense to me if that is something that could be built in that area. It wouldn't be a hospital, but it would serve our seniors. Oh, someplace like Avamere or the Meadow.
Not Meadowpark, no.
Yeah.
Rose Valley.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't
So that you-
offhand.
One thing nice about Rose Valley, my mother passed away there this year. She was there 8 years. She's very well taken care of. But one thing about it is they have a more intense area, kind of 2 stories
Yes.
inside. But on the other side, half a block, they had all these cottages, 1 and 2 bedroom cottages. Mostly, I think they're mostly 1 bedroom, small cottages. But if that, with the wetlands in there, and if you could build maybe a main structure and then the smaller cottages along there, and you have, instead of a straight through grid of streets, you have a winding trail around the wetlands.
John, great idea.
And where people can walk on. Walking has kept my mother alive for about 4 years, beyond what she would have. So, if you could do that, to me, that'd be mixed use in there, right?
Yeah, and there's also, not to add complexity to this, I like where that's going, but we've also got the comprehensive plan designation. And so it's actually mixed use for zoning, but then the comp plan designation is general commercial, which allows for mixed use zoning. So it's a weird planning technical thing that we've got 2 zoning maps. So hopefully out of your motion, we can tease that out. I can kind of...
I'm gonna put my 2 cents worth on this.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot about this property.
Great.
I've spent literally hundreds of hours on this place.
Took your classes out there.
Yeah, for years.
I went with you a couple times.
So there's a bridge here, and there was a big water line that goes across there, and I think it's McNulty Water. So, they had a lot to do with the bridge putting in and the school building it. So there's a a nice wide bridge, you know, it could hold a tank, you ever looked at it? But, you know, I don't know if it's wide enough for a car to go.
You can't drive on it.
It's not.
Yeah. So these are wetlands. And so when, what's the school out there, McBride?
McBride.
So when McBride was built, it was built on a wetland. So the school had to mitigate this property. So they mitigated by making these into wetlands.
They were originally gonna build McBride there. but
Yeah, they were originally gonna build it, then it ended up being where they mitigated. There is a big drainage ditch right here, through here. And if we're going to do this part as a park up here, there's actually, it goes down, I don't know, 15, 20 feet, somewhere up in here. Jen, you've probably been out there.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're gonna make this a park, I don't know where the line is, but I think the line should actually be a little bit above this lower area. Now, this is a wetlands that no one did anything to. The city never, the school district never planted any trees down here. This is just kind of a big hole in the ground with grass in it, is what it is. But it is a wetland, okay? So if we're gonna make this a park, which I think is a good idea, then it needs to be up here a little bit. And it's easy for people to get across from this area, because I think there needs to be an area up here that they can go. These two wetlands, like Jenny said, this one has trees that kind of is up on the uplands a little bit here. And this one here, when they did it, the company that originally put it in, they took care of it for 1 year, and the school took care of it for 5 or 6 years.
Everything's overgrown now.
Yeah, I was just out there a couple months ago and took a look at it. As far as zoning, what John said, I really like that idea. My mother-in-law was in a very similar place where they had, when they first went there, they stayed in little apartments that were their own. And then eventually they went to another stage, and then eventually they went to it, we're all familiar with that. You know, I think that would be really a good area. But I think these wetlands have to stay because, these were recorded, and they're probably on the city, right, Jen?
On the city? What do you mean?
They're on the city's inventory of wetlands?
Some of them are not locally significant, but that still means we have to honor them through DSL.
But
So,
these two are, though.
We're MC 15 and MC 17 is what we're talking about, if you look at that map right there.
so the southern one is not significant to the city. The only one that is significant is the middle one.
The middle one,
The
huh?
biggest one has a protection zone.
No, it has, a protection zone. But the other one, the wetland, I know, this one doesn't have much of a protection zone around it. But, I mean, the actual wetlands is protected, though.
Yes.
Well, no one's gonna build anyway, they gotta build it up.
Yes. When I say protection zone, I mean,
Around
so there's a,
20, 30 feet buffer zone? or
yeah,
whatever.
it's 50 feet around the center one.
Jerry, and McNulty has come off the Ross Road property, I watched them do it, and build a water line onto down towards the, Millard Road. No, they came across and down, and the city, I believe, also came down and, has sewage in there.
Well, it says
Right,
right here.
I
It
saw
says-
that.
Yeah, it says right here.
The sewer line runs about right
City
here.
Sanitation sewer main.
Of beans
Yeah.
and-
Yeah, it runs right here,
Yeah.
outside of the wetland.
And I assume there's adequate, electrical access.
So Jen, basically, what you're kind of asking us, you'd like to see, you would, the city, the staff would like to see this.
I'm representing myself when I say that. I'm not saying all of staff has talked and said that the top half should be a
But,
park.
Okay, then you
That's,
personally,
yeah.
you
that-
would like to see this as a park.
I think it would meet the need for the Parks
Can you say
Master
yes or no?
Plan.
Jerry,
I
you're
think-
putting her in a really awkward position.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, okay, so, but if this is gonna be erected a park, then my recommendation is that we take a little of what I call the uplands, it's not down in the flood, it's above the floodplain up there. And then I like John's idea of this being some kind, I'm gonna shut up.
So what, so
Could
what
this
was
serve as a
this?
parking area? That yellow section?
I don't know.
Get across the street.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's before the bridge or not.
So what was your idea for the southern? I missed
Park down
that.
on you, just park- there's a
So if
few
the
places
top
to park.
part is a park, what's the,
Southern
Care
part, the
facility.
Care facility,
Okay.
cottages, and
okay, so I think,
Senior
I
living or
think
something?
Yeah, I think the mixed use zone would satisfy those specific uses.
So question about that. So let's say we rezone it to mixed use and we want it to be a care facility. Is the plan to have the city sell the property to a company that's gonna do that, or?
Yes,
Okay.
the city's not in the development
Yeah,
business,
that's
so,
why I'm
so we would have to market the site to developers and say, hey, here's what we wanna do with the property, and try to get someone, just like we did with the waterfront, we had to go out for bid, basically, and say, hey, we have this property. So the trail aspect is trickier because you can't capture that with zoning. It just has to be something that we keep talking about and say we want this to be connected with a trail.
Yep.
It's also in our transportation systems plan, which helps because we have to somehow meet some transportation connection.
Okay.
So I feel comfortable that that's gonna be addressed.
I like what we're talking about as long as there's a trail system in there.
Yeah,
That
and
make it all-
I think that should be in your motion, just so that we keep that dream alive, because I really like that idea.
The trail
Have
should be in the area of the trail around the wetlands is what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
That
connect
is-
the wetlands with the trail to the park.
We're on a winding road and then
So
end
make-
it in a trail in the park.
Yeah.
Basically make a motion to make the upper part a park.
There's a safety issue on that as well, because kids going to the high school, coming back and living in a Millard area, could just simply walk or bike through that trail system from Furlock Park, from the athletic field. It's almost a straight shot without going out on Sykes Road or Columbia Boulevard in terms of transporting. So there's trail connectivity there, if we think about it. And so that's I think what you guys are coming up with is going to be, I think, a really rock solid recommendation.
It's a very valuable piece of property with all the infrastructure.
It is.
Just the wetlands, just the little wetlands.
It creates
Yeah.
a problem. It's not just about
Well,
you don't have
I think we've got, yeah.
it's getting almost 6 o'clock here. I think we need to either come up with entertain a motion.
Can I ask one more quick question?
Yes,
'Kay,
yes.
quick. Have any companies approached the city or developers approached the city about that property yet? Or is this or are we just rezoning it on our own behalf? Or have we actually been approached by a developer saying, hey, I want this, but you need to rezone it first?
We're constantly being approached by developers on that. Someone's always having an idea of what they can do and whatever. Not the council, not in an open way, but just to the staff.
Okay.
Just to our city administrator or whoever gets the call or whoever talks with those developers. And so, so far, nothing has happened because the council needs to make a decision on the zoning.
Okay.
Once we get the zoning, then we'll see what happens if you're kind of like foreseeing a care facility, then I'm sure that, and if the council approves that and goes with that, then we'll see developers come along and want to build care facilities, so developers for investors.
Okay.
So if that becomes a care facility area down there, the lower wetlands, then the parks would be a C, because now we're talking mixed use. If we're trying to designate the upper portion as parks. Is
Yeah,
that correct?
so we wouldn't touch the northern portion, because it's public lands
So,
now.
so we don't have to change anything, and
For that
parks is public land. they
Northern
go
third,
together.
yes.
But now if our recommendation then is if we turn that lower section or that bigger section
two-thirds.
into a
Mixed use.
mixed use, now the parks becomes a C.
Yes, in
And-
the southern
Right,
two-thirds.
But, and then our recommendation would be, in that section, we would like to keep a trail around the wetland area. 'Cause
Correct.
that's our only,
Yeah. Does
connect
someone
the
want to make that?
wetlands with a trail. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yep.
Okay, now we'd like to hear a motion along those lines.
No, I'm not gonna make a motion, but ever who does make the motion, and Jen, and I'm gonna go right back to where I said, because we keep talking about this line, and I don't know where this line actually is on the physical property. if we're gonna make this a park, this is kind of uplands here, and then it goes down in the riparian zone, down in that area there.
They come up and down again.
And if we put the park just down in the hole around this, where I think this is, that is not a great, I mean, it's a good place for a park, but it's kind of wetlands, it's not gonna be easy to develop. I think, I don't know this, but I think this line needs, you know, when we go to this, Jen, the motion I'd like to see is that this is, you know, that we move it so that part of the park is in this up part up here, because you could have benches along here that looked in here, you could do stuff up in here that you're not maybe gonna be able to do down there in the winter time, because this is very low. So in the motion, I'd like to see,
Okay.
you know, I don't know how to word that, but, you know, part of that.
But we're not talking about rezoning that portion.
But you're
Well-
wanting this line.
Well,
Yeah.
in a way, we have to, John,
Yeah, I
because
want this red line to come this way. I
Is that
think.
possible, Jenny, or are we starting to bark up something that's?
No, we don't have to follow the existing lot lines with our zoning. We can move the lines around.
That's what I
okay,
want.
so if the motion includes, as long as the upper section is going to be parks, as long as that upper knoll is included, you just want the high ground at the north end, is that what I'm
Because I
hearing?
think if that's gonna be a park for the next 200 or 300 years or 100 years, you know, we want an area up there that's actually usable all the time. Because I don't think the area down in the low, around that little natural wetlands there,
Well,
is
you
really
might also need it for
conducive.
parking.
John, good call. And there should, yeah, exactly.
So you just want a portion of the park to have a lower and an upper area.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
And John just mentioned a good point that I didn't think about, you know, is the parking. Because you're probably not gonna be able to build a parking structure down in that lower area, because it really is pretty wet down in there. And it's,
Okay, so if we say the upper section stays public use, because that's parks. But now when we turn the lower section into multiple use, mixed use, we want to make sure that we allow the trails through the wetland area to be able to connect the wetlands.
Stan, here's the way
Is that,
yeah, that's what I'm saying, but here's the way I think maybe it should be worded. The northern lot that's on this map, the lot line, that's the southern lot line, should be moved farther south to include uplands that's not in the riparian zone for parking and for the park. So that line should, and you can kind of,
Yeah, I understand the point, yeah. It might even be in it's a great spot, we just don't know how much upland's included.
But I don't think it is.
Okay. No, that's a good point, though. I appreciate that knowledge.
is that, have we touched all the bases then?
Yeah,
Okay, so now I think we're ready for, I'd like to hear a motion,
I think
along
actually you need two motions.
Okay, we can,
To avoid confusion.
all right, do them in two
think
steps, I
understand where
agree.
you're coming from, John, yeah.
I'd move that the upper section be continued to designated public lands, and the area looked at to see whether it could be expanded into the southern section of the property.
For parking and
that
for
one-
part of
Well,
the
for
park.
public lands for park use,
Is
yeah.
that one motion, John?
I
That's
second
one
that.
motion.
Okay.
I'll do you another, we'll do another one after we.
Okay, so we have that motion and a second question? None? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? No. Okay, now,
Now
motion
I'd
number
move-
two.
Now I'd move that the southern section of the property be changed to MU mixed-use designation with the thought that some sort of public facility such as assisted living for seniors or cottages for seniors be the main focus of development.
and then the trail.
And a trail.
With, around the wetlands.
Connecting the wetland.
Wet-
And a trail system connecting it to the northern section of the property.
Okay, okay, I heard a second question. None? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Motion. Okay.
And while she's writing, I wanted to add one more thing about the timing of all of this. So right now, we're just gathering feedback, but we have, the city staff's in the process of working through a housing needs analysis study, which is important because whenever you rezone something, you want to make sure you're not taking away important lands for commercial uses or for residential uses. So this zone change will not occur until we finish the study that informs our decision making. So that's planned for July 2018 to be finished, 2019, I'm sorry. So we won't see this happen quickly, but we just wanted to put it before you at this point and kind of see what the idea is.
And I would just suggest that the people who actually showed up to the initial public forum would be included. I mean, I don't know if there's a way to contact them and keep them updated on.
Well, they'll be
the
there.
Discussions.
Yeah.
I
They
think
had-
just to make sure that they're, because I've been.
They were
involved-
stakeholders.
Yeah. Things like that in the past, and I found out late
Mm-hmm.
in the process, and so the fact that they've already shown up, just keeping them involved in the process and keeping the discussion open, I think is really important.
Yeah.
So-
Well, I certainly like what you've come up with because you've met the needs not only of the elderly and some who are in need, but you've also incorporated some park areas that can facilitate education and work with bird watching areas, those kinds of things. I mean, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, Thad, you gotta start mowing more land now.
Yeah, and the money made from it should go towards
Oh.
another park.
Towards parks, yeah.
Okay, was that it
Way to
on,
go.
was that
Good
it
work,
on
you
Malone?
That was
Nice.
it, yeah.
Okay, I don't know about you guys, but I think we passed time. Can we, postpone?
No,
I think we
Stan,
should do
I got
five.
something that I
Oh,
got something right now.
Okay, all right, what do we got that has to be, go quick?
We need to do 5B, right?
5B, all right,
5B.
okay. Okay, so 5B, revised proposed ordinance creating
Oh.
parks and recreation.
Kathy put the name on there that was suggested. You can keep that name or you can change it if you'd like. And then she changed it to make more members to accommodate the other group.
The Parks and Trail Commission?
So I just need an approval.
How many members was it?
There's 3 from Bicentennial, so you would be 10 instead of 7.
I mean, I like
Oh,
the
you did.
idea of them.
Oh,
I'm a little
okay.
concerned that none of them showed up to the meeting this month.
So we're going with Parks and Trails, is that what I'm hearing?
Parks and Trails.
I'm okay with that.
Parks and Trails is, do we need a motion to
Is
accept
this similar
Parks
I
and
to all
Trails?
the other stuff
I'll
we
make a
have?
motion to accept if there's no other questions.
And I'll
Is this
second
similar
that.
to the existing,
Yes.
things? Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept our new thing being called Parks and Trails Commission?
Second.
And the second question, none? All in favor? Aye, okay. Opposed, none? So we are now Parks and Trails Commission. I'll have to turn in my gavel, I'm sorry.
For a vote.
All right. Anything else? Okay, moving on to 5C, Walnut Tree Park, because of the hot, what?
Would you like to do those the next meeting since we're running so?
Well, I was just going to say, all we're doing there is decapitating all the weeds, because there's no grass growing. It's been hot.
As long as you're not decapitating the tree.
No, we're just
We're done.
decapitating the dandelions, and,
Let's hope that tree don't fall like the one did the other day.
yeah, well, boy, if that one falls, there will be a power outage,
It was
yes.
a big oak that fell.
Okay, dog parks. Who was gonna report on dog parks?
Elisa, but she.
Yeah, she's not. here.
Okay, so then we'll go to old business. None, okay, we'll go around any
Well,
of,
defining the fence,
I
You-
feel like we should push that off.
I think push it off once again.
Well-
That isn't really time sensitive
Yeah.
for me. It's just something that I asked for research if you could.
so if there's a big issue on Friends, like I say, as long as you still have people coming and Patrick has people coming with his friends, as long as they're still coming to help with your parks, we'll leave that alone. All right,
I was more
We're
partial.
trying to
Okay.
define what a fringe is.
okay, Jerry, do you have anything?
I do.
Okay, Jerry,
Always have something.
okay, good.
you know, last time we met and we walked the area, but what I really wanna say is, we looked at Third Street from, this is going from south to north.
And this is
okay?
for the urban trail.
This is for the urban trail. You know, the three of us plus Elisa have been working on this. And so, this is, right here is Nob Hill Park, and this is Third Street. And we've tried to figure out how to go along here. So, there is an existing sidewalk here, but ordinance 3163 allowed people to buy this back. And I found out why, but I won't go into that. That's kind of an interesting side story. But anyway, these houses bought them up here, and then along Third Street right here, 415, 465, 455, and this one, these 5 people bought it. So they have 15 feet of property out here, which now includes the existing sidewalk, okay? And we've talked about different things, you know, maybe having what do we call a pedestrian trail or a pedestrian.
Like a marked path on the side of the road.
And Sue didn't like that because she said it was unsafe. But if the people own this, can we use the sidewalk? So I went and looked at the ordinance, and this is what I want the city to do, okay? The city has an attorney that's on retained.
Oh, he's always on vacation, is what he's on.
Okay. So if you look at section 3 of ordinance, this is ordinance 3163. And if you look at the 3rd section, and John seems to think that we're okay with this. So I'm just gonna read, there's just one sentence in section 3. It says, the city reserves to itself any operating public utility provider easements over the entire 3rd Street, which used to be Oak Street, vacated street right-of-way for access, maintenance, and repair of any existing or future public facility or public utility. So I'm just gonna kind of read that again and leave out a lot of words. It says, the city reserves to itself easement over the entire 3rd Street, vacated by the right-of-way for access, maintenance, and repair and public facility, and future public facility. John seems to think that the sidewalks are a public facility.
But they go to nowhere right now.
And so,
They dead end.
so the question I have that I want the attorney to ask,
There's a bridge to nowhere.
does the public have the right to use the sidewalk in these areas where the people walk back? Because it appears like if you look at section 3, and John seems to agree, but we don't have an actual legal opinion on it, that people have the right to.
So the sidewalk goes through their yard?
Well, no, the
'Cause they
sidewalk
bought
is.
You were
back
able to
the
buy
15
15 feet
feet.
back in front of the sidewalk. It was
Which
an
is-
80-foot road right away. They reduced it to 55 feet. So now you've got a bunch of sidewalks that are up against chain link fences with dogs that bark constantly, which if you start having people walk up, none of the sidewalks on the section of 3rd Street that I'm on go anywhere. On my side of the street, I'm the only complete
No,
sidewalk.
I'm not talking about your side of the street.
On the other side of the street, once again, they only go about 5 houses, and there's a couple hundred feet this way
No,
that
no,
has
that's
no
not,
sidewalk,
that's
and
not,
none this way.
that is not true, Howie.
It
That is
dead ends
not-
at each end.
that
There's
is
no way to get
not-
on it without trespassing across somebody's 15 feet that was bought already. It doesn't go all the way to this end of the street, and it doesn't go all the way to this end of the street. It's just in the middle of the block where
Well,
there's sidewalks.
So I think that's
They bought the property,
You can see
Yes.
that we've had.
and the
a-
sidewalk
the
is on their
city's-
property, basically.
For now, what the city said was when we bought those pieces of property is that with the 50-foot road right away, there'd be enough room for a car to parallel park, and a new sidewalk would be built out closer to the street.
But this
But
doesn't say that.
my question is, the sidewalk is on their property.
Yes. Now it is.
We want to know if we can use the sidewalk.
That's on their
But how
property.
do you
on
get
their
on?
property.
Are you gonna complete that sidewalk for the next?
I don't
Let's
think
see at
we.
the other end, it's like
This is just my
300 feet.
opinion. If that's their property
Yeah.
and they have a sidewalk on it, I wouldn't want people walking on it. If
Yeah.
I saw people walking it, I'd take a jackhammer and jack it up.
Yes,
Now it's not a
that's
sidewalk
been
no more.
proposed, it's a huge gray area in my neighborhood. If you
But
want this
now
trail to be done
easements
quickly,
mean
you
like
stay on the road up
to
there
get
for right
to
now.
your house. It
If
don't
you're gonna
mean-
start talking about the sidewalks, everybody on my street will fight this trail. Because there's so many dogs that are barking in that
Hey,
neighborhood
wait.
You can't
already.
stop a dog
Hey,
from
guys,
barking.
Go down that
hold it.
sidewalk,
Hold
it'll be
it.
a vicious
Hold
cycle.
it. Are we making this
You want this
park?
trail to happen or not?
The question is,
It's that
the
simple.
question is, you know, the city reserves to itself easement over the entire Third Street, vacated street right-of-way for any existing or future public facilities. Existing. So the existing public facilities is the sidewalk. Now, it's not everyone. If you look at the thing here, there's a sidewalk that goes, up Third Street. Everyone on, I know Howie's all fired up and emotional about this thing. But what all of us wanted, every single one of us of the 4 people, we wanted to have a public, what do we call it?
Like
Public-
a path,
Like a bike lane?
a marked,
A
like,
walkway on
path
the edge of the street that just have a little thing delineating.
Rather
it
than a
afterwards.
on the
sidewalk?
edge of the road,
still gonna
not
have
on
dogs
the
barking.
sidewalk,
And it's a dead
but
end.
on the edge of the road.
It's a dead end.
But you're
But-
still gonna have dogs
But-
barking.
Guys,
Yeah.
let me finish.
But
So
not
that was what
like
we
if they
wanted.
were
That's
right
what
up
we were
against the
going for.
fence.
Every one of us, and I'm gonna, including me, we wanted to go up the street. I talked to John. John talked to Sue. Sue said, well, that's not safe. I'm not sure we can do it. So I went and looked up this ordinance, and basically this ordinance, there's, there's
Who are John and Sue?
Sue.
Sue Nelson, our engineer.
And John Welch.
John Walsh,
You
our
talked-
city
So
attorney.
maybe we can invite them to
No,
come
I have,
to our
that's what
next
I'm
meeting.
saying. That's why I'm asking the city to talk to our city attorney.
Why don't you talk to him?
Because
He won't charge you.
And I will
The
talk to my
question
neighbors
is-
Go
and
ask
have
him.
them mobilize against
the
this whole
question
idea.
is, the question,
How to find a new route.
Can he do that?
what's that?
Go talk to the city attorney.
Yeah, there you go.
But I'm asking the city to talk to the city attorney for this. I mean, I think it would be a lot easier.
No new
I'll go
sidewalk
ask him
in
if you
this
want.
whole- my neighborhood.
So
since
the
the
question
70s.
ifs for you is, are you demanding a sidewalk or are you wanting a path? Because a path would be very easy to do and it wouldn't cost a lot.
All of
It
us
could
would-
be paint on
Yeah,
asphalt.
that's what,
That's
And
what
I
saw
we
that in
want.
Seattle.
That's
That-
what
Yeah.
every one of us want.
except for Sue, evidently.
for
But
Sue
maybe we
Nelson.
can invite Sue to one of our next meetings and we can have a discussion with her
Yeah.
about it.
We
In the
want,
meantime, we can talk to
Yeah.
the attorney and just find out, not saying we're going this route, but find out if this means that we could, in theory, use the sidewalks.
well,
Not saying that we're gonna do that.
The other
but just
thing
have it
John
as an
says, even
option.
if we could use the sidewalks, the people could just walk up the street.
so,
Yeah.
so right now, we need, what I'm hearing as far as us as parks, for us to make parks and trails work, we need a designated pathway to get from Nob Hill down to where there's real
From Nob
sidewalk.
Hill
To,
down,
to which
to go
street?
2 blocks.
To go those 2 blocks, we would,
Callis.
So like a
From-
pedestrian
from-
walking area.
we
so
need
there-
there's
like a
Plymouth-
bike trail.
Yeah.
we
There's
needed
Plymouth
a
Street.
dash line where people can walk, and now here's the 2 issues that the city has to address. If we go on the roadway, and the engineers don't like people walking in the streets on those 2 blocks, that's an issue, but they would be superseded by sending people on someone's property that's their sidewalk, and if they fall on a sidewalk that belongs to those people, they would be liable, and I'm sure they don't want that. So therefore, we shouldn't be putting people on someone's sidewalk that doesn't belong to the city.
Well, if there's an easement in place through an ordinance,
Well,
then
then,
the easement covers you.
well, then as long as the homeowners that quote own, that bought that sidewalk are aware that they have to let people walk, that's up to lawyers.
They all
but-
are. It's just a big, huge gray area right now
So-
unless you connect it so that you have a place to get onto it, and you have
Right.
a place to get off
Exactly.
of it.
Right now,
Because right now,
that,
the only way to
here's
get
the
on it is to.
question.
I like the idea of a clear pathway.
So here's a
dash line.
question. Let's say I bought that 15 feet. Now I wanna build a fence to block that.
You can't, cause there's an easement there.
But I don't think an
You have
easement
to-
covers walking.
Right here it says.
I got a fence on
what
each
does it
side
say?
of mine. I've
I
actually
think,
put
I
a
think
gate
an
at each end
easement
because
just
it goes
covers
to
like
nowhere.
for utility work
For
or
access,
for the,
Post office
city.
for
says as long as you
existing
can
or
walk up
future
and go
public
through the gate,
facility.
that's access.
So I think we need to know what is public facility, does that
Yeah,
include a
right.
sidewalk?
Right.
And
So-
regardless, we may not
To
even
answer
wanna go
Howard's
that route.
question, I mean, I'm just answering Howard's question. I'm not trying to say that
Oh,
we're
yeah.
gonna go the sidewalk, but
Uh-huh.
if we can't, okay, the address 491, this house right here did not, they did not purchase their 15 feet. The next 4 houses here did, and the first house on the corner right here did.
There's
okay?
another one in the middle that didn't buy the property either.
So, you can access the property by going, you can access the sidewalk. This sidewalk exists all the way down to about right here. It exists for about 2/3 to 3/4 of the street, okay? And then it doesn't. But you could access the sidewalk here and walk up here. There was an old sidewalk here. Now, these people bought back the 15 feet. There was an old sidewalk here, and it's caved in and everything else. But we're looking basically at these 5 places. So you can legally access the property by coming down Plymouth Street, turning here, and going up the sidewalk all the way to the end. But what I would like, and that's not our first choice, it's not our first choice, but I would like an attorney, the city attorney that's on retainer, to look at ordinance 3163, read section 3, and tell us if, you know, by reading this, I'm not an attorney, but if I read this, and the way John Walsh read it, he seems to think that we could use the sidewalk because it was an existing facility. And the city reserves to itself easements over the entire 3rd Street. Vacated street right-of-way, so of any existing or future public facilities. And the sidewalk is a public facility. So, but I am not an attorney, and we need to answer to this.
Is this gonna be on the test?
Yeah, I was gonna say, so for right,
we got-
If
so,
we have him
so
look, he
Je-
needs to come
so-
out and look and see
so-
in
so
person what
Jerry-
he's making a
Je-
ruling on.
so, so
It's
all
that
that we're
simple.
asking is for the Parks and Trails Commission, we need to hear back from an attorney to see if we can then allow this
we have the right of way on the sidewalk.
a right-of-way, so we can turn this Parks and Trails Commission, expand our trails through 3rd Street.
You
is
got
what I'm
anything
hearing.
on 1 o'clock Wednesday? Because I'd like you to bring that to
No.
the council.
To my knowledge, Wednesday, I'm free.
You'd have 5 minutes.
I'm gonna be
5
there,
minutes?
but
You might go.
I'm gonna be there, but I will not my viewpoint would be is they need to come out and take.
Well,
a look at it.
we need the permission for the attorney.
He's the one.
Oh, the permission?
Well, yeah, for the council to say, yeah, this is something that we want to know.
I would say yes, as long as the attorney came out and looked at the property, not just sat down and looked at a piece of paper.
Got it?
I would go for that.
Okay, I was chewed out by a commissioner that has nonstop talking since 4 o'clock, and it's now 6:08, and so if there's anything else that
Yes.
we have to cover, yes, go, be quick.
Quick report on Nob Hill. We've been talking to Columbia Soil and Water Conservation District, and they think they may have some discretionary funds that they can use for spraying of blackberries in Nob Hill Nature Park. So I believe they're supposed to be talking more to maybe Neil and stuff, but I thought I would bring that in front of you guys, that we may be partnering, and hopefully that everybody thinks that's a good idea, that they would help us with our blackberry problem up there. Also, just so everybody knows, look for your poison oak right now, it's all turning red.
Yes.
So in the woods, it is bright red, so you can identify it extra easy.
Go pick some and bring some to
I've
show
never
us.
seen it.
Oh, wait, no, don't do
Goes
that.
well with the red hat.
Future thought, just because our meeting's been so long here, I'm starting to think, especially once we incorporate new members, I'm thinking that we should meet monthly.
Agreed.
So start thinking about that. We don't have to discuss that anymore tonight. something for your thinking cap.
Sometime in 2019.
Also,
'cause
did
I'll
we
be
ever
on
take our
board.
yearly field trip this year? Did we ever take a field trip how we usually do? So that's something to think of too.
Well, we talked about walking.
Island.
Yeah, we
Well,
talked about going to the island. We also
We
Oh,
did
talked
the
about
RV,
walking the
we did,
trail.
we did the RV park once.
That
and-
was last year.
Well, okay,
Stan, we also talked about walking the
okay,
proposed urban trail.
okay, Jacob, you had.
I just got
some-
one question.
Afraid
The
to go to
dog park at
sidewalk.
McCormick, is there smoking allowed in that?
Nowhere.
No,
Okay,
no
just wanna
smoke.
make sure,
All right.
because there's a
no-
lady that smokes there all the time, and
No smoking.
I was going to tell her, but I didn't wanna start nothing, even after she spit on somebody's car.
Oh my god.
Oh, she's.
Well, yeah, there was
Okay.
a bunch of people there poking
Okay,
fun.
all right, well,
And
yes.
got one thing to
Tell everybody, real quick, the foundation is in at Gray Cliffs Park for the restroom. We'll be doing the rest of the water and sewer hookups soon, and then the restroom will be in. The ramp for the non-motorized boats, kayaks, has been cut in. It will be capped shortly, and it'll be finished so that there will be a place for people to walk down, easier access to get down to the bank. And the kayaks can be carried down easily. So, yes, canoes too. Non-motorized boats. Let's go.
We did all last year.
Okay, meeting is adjourned, thank you. Man,
wait.
what a
Next
fun.
Wednesday, next Wednesday,
What
4
time?
o'clock,
I mean,
Next
this coming,
Wednesday.
this
Not
coming or
like-
the week from this
the
Wednesday?
week after.
That would work much better.
Okay, what time?
Wednesday, 4 o'clock, 4:30, 4 o'clock, 4:30. I don't know.
Okay.
Send us send a reminder though.
Call all of us and tell
Yes,
us.
please, we need to be reminded about it.
Here's what the next meeting I'd like to do at the next meeting. I talked to Elise,
Yeah?
and she can do a
So,
what's the date?
No, that's in 2 days, 22nd.
The 22nd.
You're leading me astray.
So Elise says she can do a PowerPoint.
Okay,
So what I would like for us to do at the next meeting is to sit down and talk about everything that should be in the PowerPoint. And, you know,
Okay.
maybe
Yeah.
actually even put the words out, and she, you know, take some pictures,
put it all together, yeah.
put it all together, so we have a presentation. Because we pretty well know what we want to do,
Yep.
except for Howie, 3rd Street. I would like a
that's-
trail down the street too. I mean, I want to go down the street
I
too.
think we should talk to Sue
That
and
is
we
just-
should try to talk her
So
into it.
complicated on the sidewalk. These dogs come up and almost go through the fence section. And so when they're in the street, it's bad, but it's not as bad as some, because we've had people that walk down the sidewalks on purpose to incite the neighbor's dog.
We all agree with that. It's totally safe.
Exactly.
She is like the longest dog, and she'll run right up to you and go, in your face, hi, 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 hi.
No, I have a neurotic dog that lives next door to me.
Yeah, no, my dog is 80.
Yes.
Yeah,
Hey, Jacob,
with pictures and everything.
one of the things, like Howie said, if the city would do it, I didn't see it anywhere written, but when the people bought back the 15 feet, and the reason they bought it back is because Skip Baker, our previous person, his wife wanted to build a deck up on 3rd Street, and it was.
Oh, that was the
extended.
second time it was done.
It was supposed to, so, I was on the planning commission when they started talking about this, and I said, this is the strangest thing in the world. Why are they just doing this in this area?